Fed's grip on markets thrusts secondary wage data into spotlight. Fed points towards a pause in May after run of hikes sink in. The biggest risk to the market is no recession at all in 2023, JP Morgan strategist says. And hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is your daily news. So as you know, the Fed is going to announce what the rate hike decision will be. Probably going to be 25 basis points, and then the key is going to be how hawkish or dovish does Jerome Powell come out and say, and essentially the notes, and what does the Q&A sound like. So we'll probably see. My best guess is that he's going to say, hey everyone, we're going to be looking at data. We're data dependent. And we're going to keep the rates elevated until inflation comes down to our target rate of 2%. That's what he'll say. But sometimes the Q&A trips him up a little bit, where someone asks some sort of question of like, hey, do you think there'll be a meltdown in X sector? And he'll say, oh, well, there'll be a lot of pain. And then the market will freak out to that. So he's always very careful of what he says, because everyone's listening to every word. Now, regarding to recently, though, stocks and equities have been doing really well. You can see this January here compared to other years. It is a big month in January. There's no denying it. The crazy thing about it, though, and this is sort of where I have my doubts, is the most risky assets, basically your crypto stuff, have been basically going to the moon. If you were buying the Bitcoin miners or other Bitcoin things, this is sort of a list of different Bitcoin ETFs. You could have doubled your money, and in some cases, like as where it gets quote worst case scenario 40%, which is totally fine for a month. But this sort of just tells me that there's some still craziness in the market, and my opinion, that money needs to come out. Now, you're going to have a different opinion on that. Everyone has a different opinion on crypto, and I'm just sharing mine. I'll give you another example of this sort of craziness in the market. Carvana, which is essentially a company going bankrupt, run by a corrupt family. I'm not making it up. It's like a father and son, and they've had what's the right word to say? Questionable business practices in the past. That's a good way to put it. That stock has been going crazy as well. So when you sort of see like that kind of stuff going up, they're not trading on fundamentals. It makes me think that something wacky is going on with our markets. You could just say it's a bunch of day traders or shorts covering that kind of stuff, but it's not a fundamental. So this is sort of where I feel like until that money is out of the market, we still have more essentially air that could come out of the balloon. But we'll see tomorrow, what Federal Chair Jerome Powell says. Yes, this has been a great January. One of the things that's an interesting one, if you read the headline of this one here, it says, cooler pay gains add to debate on when Fed might pause rate hikes. So there's a challenge here, and this is kind of an interesting one, is if you stop paying workers, basically, right? And essentially what's been going on is that worker wages haven't been going up that great. So the way you can look at this one of two ways. So here they call it the employment cost index, right? And the idea is that like how much does it cost to hire workers? And it didn't cost essentially companies as much as previously expected, right? So it's interesting because I read so much data that in some situations, right, and essentially and the people who are working class or middle class feel like that their real wages aren't really going up that much, and they're struggling, right? Now, from the employer perspective, they're like, oh yeah, that's great. I can get workers and not have to pay them, essentially make more money. And so this is why I'm sharing with you that in this way is where, Wall Street will celebrate that they don't have to pay workers. But from just our regular people point of view, it's not really something to celebrate. So I just wanted to point that out. And some stocks may go up and say, hey, yeah, we don't have to pay workers very much. We're doing great. Our profits are up, etc. The other thing too, which is a thing that keeps happening though, is every time I check on the news and just share with you guys, it seems like another big company is firing. In this situation, it's actually PayPal this time. They're going to be laying off 7% of their workers. Basically, they're just come out and saying, that with the current economic environment, we just have too many people on staff. The aggregate amount end up being about 2,000 people, which is quite a bit. And we've been seeing this a lot in the tech sector, and something like a PayPal is concerning because obviously that is a payments app, and it just sort of means like, how much money is going in and out. And PayPal is really big with like something like an eBay or something like that. I'm sure you guys know. And they also have your Venmos and everything like that. There's another company that was also a tech company that reported not so great news. This would be Snapchat. They're basically saying that our revenue is not growing like it once was. And my understanding was like the revenue is basically the same level as it was like 6 years ago kind of thing. And this is concerning because, obviously we get Meta Facebook's earnings out tomorrow, and we're all concerned about these sort of online ad business because it basically, the more people that want to advertise, the ad rates can go up, right? So if less people want to advertise, then essentially they're not spending on ad spend, that they're concerned that if you spend money on the ad spend, the customers aren't going to come through the door. Like the value proposition isn't there. That's a good way to put it. This essentially represents a slowing of the economy. But we're getting a lot of mixed messages. So I'll give you another one. GM, they're saying, hey, we're still making money, right? So you're sort of seeing like in some parts of the industries where they're not doing so great, so be tech, whereas something like GM is like, we're making money because the supply chain problems have eased, and we're pumping out cars. The other thing that was really interesting about GM, the CEO is really adamant about saying that we're not going to get in a price war with Tesla, meaning that sort of the way they phrase it is that their customers already think their cars are priced at competitive prices and essentially reasonable prices. There's going to be a line of new EVs coming out by GM, and they were saying like the average cost is going to be something like a 36,000 kind of thing, or starting it. But basically, you can get one for under 40, which is tough to do with some of the Teslas. That's why they essentially were cutting costs. The other thing too, which is important to mention as well, is the energy sector seems to be doing well. So Exxon came out with a report that said, "Hey guys, we're making heaps of cash. Thank you for your money and thank you for your time." And this is something that I mentioned several times. Is I think the energy sector is always one that's going to do well. It's not like we're not going to need energy. I think the big concern obviously is going to be what does OPEC decide and stuff like that. So they basically have a monopoly on us. And I say so many times on this channel, right? I'm not thrilled that the U.S. is dependent on essentially beholden, I guess a better way to say, of a relationship with Saudi Arabia, so that kind of stuff. Because I think it always puts us in sort of risky relationships. But there's a lot of money to be made in this kind of thing, and it is what it is. So yes, Exxon is still making money. Over at Microsoft, they're actually, it's interesting because Amazon did the same thing. They're warning their employees not to put sensitive data in Chat GPT. So basically the gist of it is like, let's say you're a coder or something of that nature, and you want, the Chat GPT to spit out some code to help you out with your programming or, whatever you're doing. Basically, you're putting in sensitive code from Microsoft into ChatGPT and giving them all the information. And it's interesting because I thinking about this through, it was essentially a brilliant move by ChatGPT to essentially give their service out for free for however long they do it. They'll probably do it for like 6 months or a year or whatever, collecting all the data from all kinds of people, and then just make their service even stronger, and then go to a paid version. And thank you very much for giving us the sensitive data and proprietary knowledge from Microsoft. So big companies are going to be basically warning people that don't put sensitive stuff in there. Regarding sensitive stuff and sort of old companies, Boeing is delivered their last 747 jet. And the reason why I use the word sensitive and sort of tie it all in, it's interesting. If you understand the Boeing's model, basically they were always sort of juggling government regulations, right? They would keep pumping out these 747s and just make like bigger 747s because they had already passed government regulations. If they completely designed a new passenger jet, it would take a long time to get it through all the government safety and protocols and stuff like that. Now, I'm sure you guys understand this. There is a reason why we have safety protocols, is because we want people to be safe. And essentially, Boeing was finding these ways to sort of skirt around that by putting out the same plane but different versions of it over and over. And the other thing too that was going on is that you would have to train pilots on sort of the new versions of the planes, right? And that was also very, very expensive to do. So they would try to come up with ways to cut corners on that as well. So, to be fair to Boeing, it is a tough business to be in something like this, because every change that you make does have government oversight, right? I'm saying to be fair. But like I said before, you do have government oversight on these companies because you're dealing with people's lives, and you're also dealing with flying, these planes all around the world. So it just was mentioned to you guys, why we're talking about the 747 today. It's the last one. So I guess they're going to be redesigning and doing something. And there's also something else as well, as where Boeing is going to be hiring some people. So yes, the economy, looks like it's slowing in some areas, but in other areas, not so much, right? So GM and Boeing seems to be still doing okay. And then the show Last of Us, I made a video specifically on this when it premiered, the episode 1, and I haven't done specific episode talks about these things for a while, but I just want to mention that this is just a fantastic show. And we just finished watching episode 3, and I just wanted to mention it. It's just a fantastic show. I don't want to give you any spoilers or anything like that. I will say though that for some people, this will deviate a little bit from the game. Basically, they expand the story, right? Go into characters that maybe just had small parts in the game and stuff like that. And I think this really demonstrates the power of storytelling and why it's so important. It is always important to walk in another person's shoes and learn to appreciate what it means to be human. And I haven't seen this good of writing for quite a long time. It's really well done, and it's fascinating because the writer of it, Craig Mazin, I used to listen to his podcast, him and John August, and I've met both of these guys when I worked in Hollywood, and so I'm happy for both of them. And they're legit. They're really good writers. And Craig Mazin, though, he's the one who's working on the show, not John August, but he wrote a couple great episodes of another show that I like called Mythic Quest. And it was actually I recommended it in terms of the best TV of last year. There's a couple episodes of Mythic Quest that are very similar to this one as well. And mostly just, how can I say, just covering the condition of being human. And I think one of the things that people sort of play down, is a good way to say it. Sometimes people who are, say, in science, math, engineering, these kind of, fields, who don't take a lot of humanities, they play down the importance of humanities. And one of the things that really is a failing of, let's say, for example, say use an Enron example, something like that. If you only focus on dollars and cents and only on business, you're going to be celebrating that you're not giving pay raises to your workers, right? Because you're just thinking in dollars. Or for example, Intel. Someone was saying the problem with Intel before, it was just all run by bankers and accountants, that kind of thing. And there's something to be said to understanding other human beings' experience. So then you can manage other human beings well. Also, too, there's something to be said for studying, art. Just for example, Steve Jobs was a big proponent of studying design and art, and it showed in his company. So anyone out there that tells you that, like, you don't need to watch TV shows, get good storytelling, or those who tell you don't need to study art, those who tell you don't need to study music, these kind of things, they don't know what you're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. I mean, what you want to do is to be a full human being, learned human being, is learn to appreciate numbers. Yes, 100%. That's why we do this on this channel, but also do talk about culture and TV shows and other things as well, because to be a full person is to sort of build up all areas of your life. So we talk about career on the channel, we talk about relationships, all kinds of things, because this sort of builds you all up as a solid human being. And sort of one of the things that happens if you get so focused on just one thing in any part of your life, just one thing, you sort of get too overweighted in one area and not enough attention paid to other areas. It's sort of like building a stock portfolio to where if you put all your eggs in technology and you didn't put any of your eggs in, say, financial, or you didn't put any of your eggs in just defensive and healthcare, that kind of stuff, then you become overweighted and you become imbalanced. And so this is sort of why I bring this up. I know I'm going on a long rant here, but it's not a rant, but just a long talk. But just see the show Last of Us. I'm not kidding. It's everything you want in a TV show: action, drama, acting, writing, great directing, set designs. Everything is really, really good. So anyway, I hope this is helpful for you guys. I do appreciate your time. We'll see what the Fed says tomorrow. And this has been your Daily News.